I don't know how many people are familiar with him. I think some people are. He's involved with EthericWarrior.com and the gifting movement, organized gifting movement around the world. And he'll be coming on to talk about alternative healing methods and just all kinds of cool stuff. They're great people. They've had so many adventures. You can catch the adventures of Don and Carol Croft on the EthericWarrior.com website. They'll be our first guest at the end of March. After that, I'm trying to secure a couple of other really cool guests. One of them is John Lamb Lash. Will be hopefully at the end of April. We haven't got the specific date, but it's either the 3rd or 4th week in April. And he's the author of a website called metahistory.org, but he also wrote a book called Not in His Image, which is, I believe, one of the most important books of modern time, and it speaks directly to basically the recapturing of the sacred feminine. The book's called Not in His Image: Gnostic Vision, Sacred Ecology, and the Future of Belief. So he's born and raised in America, but he lives in Brussels, where he studies in private libraries out there in Brussels. He's an amazing guy. He's been on Coast to Coast several times too. So, and he's also been on the Truth Frequency.
I love that you are so deep into this exploration. You know, you're up on the reptilian agenda and everything else. So it's great to have someone who is well informed on these, from the insider point of view, of what it's like to be a Freemason, and therefore can, you know, quell some of the fears, start to get some of the understanding out there. Because as I understand it, there are many Freemasons out there right now that wish to make the secrets not secret.
Yeah, that's correct. There's a big movement going on in a lot of the Grand Lodge jurisdictions across the country. It's called, they call it like Vision 2012 is one of them I've seen. Vision 2020 is another one. Basically, they're going around saying that there is no more secrecy. Secrecy's out. You know, we want it to be like everyday, you know, all the information out there. And that may be something that a lot of your listeners would be very enthusiastic about. But as I've already stated, it's kind of like, it's not really saying much because all the secrets are already out there on the shelf at Borders, you know, and what it really means to me is it's a continuation of the downplaying of the metaphysical and spiritual aspects to the system of Freemasonry and what it means to the individual Mason coming in who might be seeking something more than a boys' club or a means of giving away money to put on a good face. That's a big thing. That we ended on the break about charity. You know, Masonry claims to give over, I think it's over $2 million a day in charitable endeavors now. You know, so somewhere in the neighborhood of over $700 million a year. Well, that's all well and fine. But the fact of the matter is that I know many Masons themselves who, once again, we all took an oath to fly to the general relief of our brothers. I know Masons sitting in lodges who are not rich. People say, oh, all Masons have money. I know Masons who are dressing in rags and living, you know, barely above means. I mean, month to month struggling whether they're going to be homeless. And they go without relief, while the Masons in the lodge stand up and pat each other on the back for giving away millions to the local cancer foundation, which is questionable whether they're even doing any work. I mean, is it really about prevention or research and development or just, you know, dealing with treating the symptoms? I mean, there's so much to think about there. But inevitably, it is to me a crime against Masonry that Masons themselves could suffer and struggle daily just to make ends meet, while over $2 million a day goes to these charitable orders or these charitable endeavors, which, yeah, it's great. It's great to help people that are in need, but what's the motive? I believe it started with the Morgan affair. It's a motive of putting a good face on Masonry for everybody else. And so that's the main thrust in our culture today for Masonry. It's all the focus is on the charities, and that's that, you know, political agenda. You draw a lot of men into this order who want to get involved in that, and that is not Freemasonry as I understand it, and as many other people understand it. So,
you feel that there are other lodges, such as the Scottish Rite, that are stepping up and taking the memberhood out of the Blue Lodge and starting to place them into other esoteric orders, and in this way start to usurp the very foundations of the rituals, right?
I believe that is literally misleading people down the road. If anybody wants to think about where conspiracy theories of the Dark Empire may lay, the only place that I could think so far, in my experience, is in the court of organizations like the Scottish Rite. I mean, this order, the Supreme Council is a totalitarian system, not unlike the papacy or the magisterium of the Catholic Church. When a person becomes a Scottish Rite Freemason, they swear unwavering allegiance and obedience to the Supreme Council 33rd degree in South Carolina. That's worldwide. So, you know, that's amazing to me, because the other bodies that I belong to, I never have taken any kind of allegiance swearing oath like that to any one particular entity within Freemasonry. We are invited to join, we are invited to take these oaths if we choose, and are told explicitly that nothing we're asked to do will ever violate our oaths to our community, to our families, to ourselves. And that doesn't sound like what happens when you become a Scottish Rite Freemason. Every time I hear of...
I gotta say, I see a lot of Stars of David, 6-pointed stars in Hebrew inside of these Scottish Rite lodges, such as outside of the Denver Lodge, right across from the Capitol. You've got your rosy cross, and next to it, your Star of David. Is this a Jewish conspiracy?
Well, you spoke of the Morals and Dogma book earlier, that voluminous work of Albert Pike's. Well, many other Masonic scholars, like Arthur Waite, for example, from the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, recognize Albert Pike as a plagiarist. And they say that he stole most of the pertinent ideas. Probably all the things you like about Morals and Dogma were stolen from a book called Transcendental Magic, or Ritual of High Magic, Ceremony High Magic, Its Ritual and Doctrines by Eliphas Levi, also known as Alphonse Constant.
Now, he's the one that came up with that goat-headed thing, and I'll tell you, the Baphomet, it would probably do the Masons a lot of good if they didn't go around saying things like, "Did you ride the goat?"
Yes, it would, and that stems out of directly from ignorance. I mean, invariably, the brother that utters that in the room is usually the least educated brother in the room. I mean, that's my experience with that, and because it happens all the time. You know, that little chuckle there, the reference to that, which is ridiculous. I am interested that, I don't know if you've heard of a professor named Hugh Schoenfield. He wrote a book called The Passover Plot, another one called The Pentecostal Revival, I think it was called. But anyways, he's a Scottish professor. He was the one who discovered the Atbash cipher, which was applied to the Bible and found the secret Kabbalistic messages in the Bible. And he applied the Atbash code to the word Baphomet and came up with the word Sophia, which is wisdom. So that's an interesting aside to the whole Baphomet riddle, or what the heck that means. By the way, Baphomet is never, ever mentioned in any Masonic rituals. I mean, I can tell you that straight up. That's not in Masonry at all. And I wanted to also say to the listeners out there, I mean, I know that it's a big shock and a great transition, and I know I'm not as smooth a speaker as you are, and I'm trying to find myself in all this. But
it takes a few years.
It's easy to judge a guy who's coming on a radio show when you're sitting there in an anonymous chat line, you know what I mean? But in reality, it is difficult to keep your, to overcome the nervousness and to keep your mind.
That's right.
There's so many.
I'll tell you what, we're up on the break here, Frater. We'll pick this back up. And it's true, guys. There's never been a moment I haven't felt shy here in front of the mic. And yet I keep coming out just for you. Just keep that in mind. And thank you all so much for all the support and everything. Keep chipping in, because I'm going to keep working. Don't worry about that. There's lots more Freeman coming. I want to get hard at work. That's where I'm going. So we'll pick this up on the other side. You're listening to the Free Zone.
A wealthy U.S. citizen.
Whether they could stop, whether they were a brother. Most of them relating to the very inner degree, the rituals that are performed. If I just look at question number 33, let's say, and it says, "Where did you come from?" And the response, "From the lofty Tower of Babel." Many people think that Freemasonry is Luciferianism, is the true force behind the New World Order, the true force behind most of the ills on our planet, and we can hardly blame anyone for thinking such when we see things as all of the heads of corporations swearing at the altar, all of our presidents swearing at the altar. There does seem to be a conspiracy here, and I'd like to know what you think about it.
Well, I tend to agree with you that there probably is a conspiracy going on at some levels in these. I mean, there's, I don't know if you've heard of the Order of Palladium, but that was an order that Albert Pike was a member of. And as far as Luciferian, that order was accused of being Luciferian left and right across the board.
Let me put it this way. Do you know of any Masonic orders that perhaps practice blood ritual?
Well, I was just about to say, of all the orders that I've looked at, and I've scoured the earth, trying to find everything I can. It's great with the information age for research as far as trying to find these various what I call detached degrees and rituals. But there is, in fact, one order that I think is very remarkable and deserves more investigation than it's been given. And that's something called the Ancient Order of the Toltec, which happens to be located right near you in the city of Topeka.
No way.
Yeah. It turns out that back in the 20s, there was these two professors at Washburn University who went down into Central America, and they were Masons, and they came across some Mayan ritual somewhere, I don't know where, but they brought it back and formed this Ancient Order of the Toltec, which is called a pageant degree, and it's a code degree, so it's both men and women involved in this. Now, according to the history of this organization, in the 20s when it first formed, there was something like 235 members, and it stayed at that level for a while, and then it spread across the country, and there was several lodges, and there was even a couple overseas, and it rose to about a couple thousand members over the course of several years, and then suddenly and mysteriously it dropped back down to the exact same number that it was to begin with, and all the other lodges across the world closed except for the number one lodge that's still in Topeka. And I can't find anything else about it, but I did look on phoenixmasonry.org, and there is a ritual of this Ancient Order of Toltec. And in the ritual, it is the only mention I've ever found of anything to do with blood or human sacrifice. It literally mentions whether or not the virgin sacrifice is pleasing to the great rain god Tlaloc. And I fell out of my chair when I read that. So that just shows you there's evidence. So there's, if you find one, there's got to be 10 others that you never saw. I mean, they're out there. And that is something to be concerned about. But, it doesn't take away from what I tried to express tonight was that there is an element to these systems, these traditional lodge systems and Western esoteric systems in general, that are edifying. They do have a quality that deserves consideration because it taps into ancient means, ancient systems of self-transformation. And the real war in Freemasonry that I have experienced is a war of the hearts and minds of Freemasons, of convincing people that they don't need to look at that kind of stuff. They need to stay asleep, just like the rest of the population, and be led by those who think they know where we're going, or where we should go. And that's anathema, or the exact opposite of what I think a person coming into this would be looking for. I mean, is more, servitude.